Reverend at Arapaho United Methodist Church. And I'm just interested, Cathy, in what is striking you these days. And you're someone who's also worked a lot with homeless families and empowering women with homeless children.
Yeah, so thank you, Larry. Thank you, Danita, for the invitation. I would be happy just to give up my panel time and just listen, because the stories are so critical to hear. But I do have a couple of things to share. As Lowry said, I'm a former assistant, in addition to being Lowry's pastor at Arapaho United Methodist Church in Richardson. I have previous experience in the real estate industry, real estate development, real estate, just a number of economic development things. And in addition to a strong passion of mine that the social gospel calls us to be in community with each other and to lift each other up and to help in all ways, including systemic instances that continue to contribute to poverty and to other things. So as an assistant director of Agape Resource and Assistance Center, I was involved in particularly women and families who are victims of domestic violence. And it gives you a unique experience to just be in partnership with them, to hear their pain. What Mr. Utley was saying about listening and learning and lamenting with them. So when Lowry actually asked me if I'd like to participate, she said, just bring, just resonate a little bit on one of your favorite Martin Luther King quotes. And I immediately gravitated towards a quote that is often attributed to Dr. King, but actually he was quoting someone else. But it is so powerful that that it sounds so much like him. And that is that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. So to clarify, that is a quote from Theodore Parker's writings from the mid-1850s. So it's a very, very long ago. He was a Unitarian minister, and Dr. King appropriately gave credit and put it in quotes, but he picked that up and made it a bit of a rallying cry that individuals continue to use now. And so when she asked me about that, I thought, okay, I want to resonate on that particular, that it bends, that the arc is long, but it bends towards justice. And just recently at our church, we had a sermon series titled Unmasked, the masks, and we take them off. And we were acknowledging various attitudes and feelings and actions that needed to be unmasked in our world. In this, how difficult it was. And here we are physically wearing masks. So one of those sermons, one of those Sundays, we focused on unmasking justice. And I was struck by our senior pastor's first point about problems that we may encounter when we try to unmask justice. And here's what he said. And really, I'm speaking now, Chris, you set this up pretty well, and some of these questions set it up pretty well, that I'm speaking mostly to my white siblings right now, that the greatest privilege is in unmasking justice, it's a privilege that we have, is the ability to move on from an exposed injustice. And the call of Jesus, who I follow, is to take a sustained look at injustice in a culture of sound bites. So let me share more. Speaking out and going back, speaking out about injustices and then going back to the routine of our lives, that's just not fully unmasking justice. Because unmasking justice is a long-term commitment. It's not just a retweet or a share on social media. Injustice is something that we will encounter over and over and over time again in our lives and beyond. The arc of the moral universe is long. It's not a one-time thing. I spoke about that recently in response to George Floyd's death in a racial reconciliation group that I am part of known as Threaded. Um, the response from those who were calling out the injustice of that incident kind of came to mind. And I was asked to share a short thought, devotional, however you want to refer to it, as part of a series of talks on lamenting. And I chose to reflect on the biblical story of Ruth in that devotional. Um, and I wanted to share that with you today. The story of Ruth isn't just about Ruth. Ruth from the Hebrew Bible. She has her own book, which is nice. But the story of Ruth is not just about Ruth. The story begins with a famine that forced a man and his wife, Naomi, out of Judah and into Moab, which is currently Jordan. So they were in this strange land. And over time, they had two sons, and the sons married women named Orpah and Ruth. So these wives would be Moabites because that's where they were living at the time. Ruth is one of those. Naomi is now her mother-in-law. And in a series of tragedies, Naomi's husband dies first, and then her two sons also die. So the women are left without husbands, which is not a good place to be. So Naomi decides to leave the land of Moab and return to Judah, where she was raised. And both of her daughters-in-law are initially willing to join her, but Naomi encourages them to stay in Moab so that they would have a better chance of finding husbands. Now, I could get off on a whole rabbit's trail about that, about how they have a better chance of finding husbands, a better life at the time, but let's get past that. Naomi didn't just say it once, she said it a few times. Go back, she says, may the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband. See, there she goes again, this equation of a woman's value to a husband or anyone else. But I'm going to move on. Orpah takes Naomi's advice. She reaches over and she kisses her goodbye, and she returns home to Moab. But Ruth, on the other hand, is in this for the long haul. Here's what she says to Naomi in verses 16 and 17. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. So Naomi had become Ruth's family, had become her mother. They had grown to love each other as mother and daughter. They had experienced grief together. They had laughed together. They had cried together. And Ruth had a choice. She could stay where she was comfortable and return home and likely marry someone, or she could stand by Naomi, journey to an unfamiliar place, be uncomfortable for a while, and continue to be in relationship with her, leading to other relationships as well until death. So Ruth is clear in her actions. And siblings, I want to say, especially white siblings here, we should be too. Again, speaking to the white siblings, are we unmasking justice when George Floyd is killed and then retreating back to the comfort of our own homes? What do we do then when Jacob Blake is shot and killed? Is Jacob Blake not also family? I'm saying to you, we too have a choice, and we can stay where we're comfortable, return home, and wait for the next incident of injustice only to pull out our phone and tweet again. Or we can stand by our siblings, our brothers and sisters of color, in perhaps an uncomfortable place for us, but that's okay, because we need to listen, we need to learn, we need to lament, and we need to leverage. We need to continue the journey together, just like Ruth and Naomi did. So I ask you, what's the action that we take here that says, your people will be my people, and your God, my God? And I would submit to you that our action to unmask justice comes from our hearts and from a faith that truly believes that every person is a cherished child of God with dignity and expectation that we are all equal. It's in gathering together, sharing a meal, learning more about each other that we are going to form familial bonds. It's in the action of building community, a beloved community, in which we can all walk without fear of each other, and in which we can grow in love. It's a community that becomes family. So when we build a family, it's a whole lot harder to return to our comforts when our siblings are dying in the streets. When we build a family, a beloved community, privilege is no longer being comfortable. The greatest privilege is in the honor to stand with each other until the beloved community is complete. So to put it in the context of Martin Luther King, it takes a family, people bonded together in the long term, to bend that arc towards justice together in the long term. It doesn't take us being in moderation. It takes everyone's strength and fortitude and assurance that justice is not just the moral necessity, but also the righteous one that binds us all together as equal children of God.
I love that, Cathy. Thank you so much. That
Oh,
was
you're welcome.
beautiful. And we have to bend it together, and that we are here as a family and beloved community, and we are not going to leave you stranded and alone. White allies, we are going to be there with you, our Black and brown brothers and sisters. I love that. Leon, I see you down there. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to go next to Reverend Titus Brown, who is from our neighborhood church, North Highlands Bible Church. And Titus, I love that you're the pastor of families there, because that just reminds us the things we're talking about are not above the heads of children. They're so important to talk about